What's up? I'm PD Sean and I'm an artist in Montgomery, Alabama. So in a lot of my videos, I mention that I like to use Master's Touch acrylic paints. It's my go-to paint and it's what I'm most comfortable using. But there's a lot of paint brands out there and some of them are really expensive and some of them are not as expensive. So which brands are better than others? Well, in this video, I'll be doing a comparison video on two different acrylic paints. The categories that I'll use to compare these paints are opacity, viscosity, pigment, texture, color mixing, and of course, cost. Since I seal all of my paintings, I'm not going to base my decision on permanence. Also, we don't have a few years to sit around to see how they hold up to fading. Before we get into it though, I'd like to make a quick distinction between cheap paints and cheap paints. I feel like it's worth pointing out that there's a difference between an inexpensive professional grade paint and a cheap quality paint. When I refer to a cheap paint, I'm talking about an inexpensive professional grade paint, not the kind of paint that you find in the dollar store for at-home arts and crafts with kids. But if that's something that you're interested in seeing, leave me a comment below and I'll do a comparison video with a dollar store brand paint and an inexpensive professional grade paint. That might actually be pretty fun. I might just do that anyway. Now for this video, I'll be putting Master's Touch acrylics and Golden brand fluid acrylics head to head to see which paint I think is better. I'd also like to point out that this is all based off of my opinion. My videos aren't sponsored, so I'm not trying to sway your judgment one way or the other. And there's also no way that I would know which paint you would prefer. So I'll provide you with whatever information I can. I'll let you know which paint I think is better, but if you're an artist, you'll have to make your own educated decision based off of how I evaluate these paints. In an effort to save time, since I'm painting two canvas for this video, I'm using a sketch that I've had for a few months. This sketch is fairly simple with few details, so it's something I should be able to get done relatively quickly. The sketches are transferred onto both canvas, so now I'm going to put a wash over the graphite. The wash is mostly to protect the transfer from smudging while I'm working on each painting, but it's also there to help with the contrast because white is a difficult color to shoot. I'm going to use a yellow wash for the Golden fluid painting and Cashew for the Master's Touch painting. That way you guys know which one I'm working on. Alright, it's day 2 on this project, and if everything goes well, I should be able to get both paintings done today. And now, it's time to line up these paints and see which one I like better. I need this to be kind of a quick project, so what I'm going to do is paint a simple background with a light glow behind these characters. I'm sure there's a proper name for this style or technique, but I don't know what it's called. So if you know what it is, tell me in the comments and learn me something. The first category on our list is opacity. For those of you that aren't familiar, opacity refers to the level of translucence. In other words, can you see through it? And if so, how easily can you see through it? It's worth noting that some projects or effects you want a high level of opacity for clear elements that you can see through, like water or the reflection of light. But in those cases, you'd want to use a thinner with your paint, so what we're looking for with this project is how many layers it would take to achieve solid color. First up is the Master's Touch. This paint's kind of spotty when it comes to opacity, and I've noticed that ever since I started using them. The opacity is very low and most of the colors need multiple layers to get solid coverage, which is why I usually compensate for that by painting a layer of white over my characters before filling in the colors. Meanwhile, the Golden fluid paint is exceptional. These are very small bottles, so I wasn't surprised that they'd have a really good opacity since you don't get a lot in each bottle. But this is such a fluid paint, I didn't expect it to have the amount of coverage it did while still maintaining such a rich color. I was able to cover a huge area of the canvas without paint being so thin that you start to see through it. And on top of that, it actually took very little paint to do that. So I'm going to have to give the opacity test to Golden brand. The next category for this video is going to be viscosity, which is how thick or thin these paints are. It's the first thing I noticed about Golden brand paint, and they don't call it fluid acrylics for nothing. These are very, very fluid acrylics, which means the paint just has very little internal friction, so it glides like butter over the canvas. And because this paint has such fluid consistency, it takes a little longer for it to dry, which makes it easier to blend, you can spread it farther, and it's easy to load your brush with this paint. The Master's Touch paint is pretty much the opposite. It's a thicker paint, but you don't have to do much work to get the consistency that you want. There's very few projects that I paint straight out of the tube with Master's Touch, and most artists are going to use a mixing medium with whatever paint they're using anyway. If I need to, I can use a thinner with this paint and I can get the same viscosity as the golden fluid acrylics. Or if I want more texture on a project, I can use it as is. So based on its versatility, I'm going to give the viscosity test a Master's Touch. Next is pigment, and what I'm referring to is how rich and vibrant the colors are for these paints. Now I had to mix every color for these paintings and I didn't get the exact same colors after mixing, so it's a little difficult to rate the pigment of these paints based on the paintings. So what I'll do is I'll use ultramarine blue that each paint set comes with, and we'll take a closer look at them head to head on one of my test canvas. Golden here, and the Master's Touch here, we can see the Golden Brand paint has more vibrant, richer color. So the winner of the pigment test is Golden Brand Fluid Acrylics. Next up is texture. For this category, we're looking for the amount of or lack of texture. There are some projects that you want visible texture and some that you want very little or no texture. The Master's Touch paint is great for texture because it has thicker consistency. Straight out of the tube, you can use this paint in a lot of ways to get different textures on your projects, or you can mix in a thinner and make it more fluid to reduce the amount of texture. The Golden Fluid paints are very light paint, so in order to get visible texture, you would need lots of layers, a mixing medium, or gesso to create those effects. So both of these have uniquely different texture qualities, but overall I have to give this one a Golden Brand based on one factor. When painting with Master's Touch, you have to paint quickly or the paint starts to dry, and if you're still trying to work, it gets sticky and it can start to coagulate, which creates unwanted texture. So for that reason, Golden Brand wins this category. Now we'll move on to color mixing. What I'm looking for with color mixing is how easily I can get the color that I want or that I'm looking for by mixing two or more colors together. I thought Master's Touch would have a clear advantage in this category because the paint set that I usually get comes with a ton of pre-mixed colors, which means I can just grab a color that's close to what I need, tweak it a little bit, and I'll have the color that I want. But even though this Golden Brand set only comes with 10 bottles, it was so easy to mix them to get the right color. So I want to give the advantage to Master's Touch since they have so many pre-made colors, but I can't since Golden Brand is actually available in 83 different colors. And since it was so easy to get the color that I wanted with the base colors, the better paint for color mixing is Golden Brand. Every category that I've covered up to this point is essential for the quality of a painting. But now, last but not least, we're going to talk about cost, which is a really important factor when it comes to struggling artists. Not everyone can afford the more expensive paint brands, and this Golden Brand set comes in at a whopping $50 for 10 1-ounce tubes. Or if you buy the bottles individually, they can run between $10 and $65. Meanwhile, Master's Touch has a set of 48 2-ounce tubes for $80, or you can get the tubes from between $7 and $12 each. So if you're on a budget, I highly recommend the Master's Touch acrylic paints. This is a brand that I've been using for years. It's a really good paint, especially for the price, and you can create some amazing artwork. But if it's within your budget, Golden Brand Fluid Acrylics is well worth the price. It went beyond my expectations, and after this project, I might consider switching brands. So now that these paintings are done, let's take some final shots of them. That's it for this video. Golden Brand wins the comparison. Thank you guys so much for watching, and a massive thank you to all of my patrons. You guys are amazing. If you want to help support the studio and get some really cool stuff while you do, go to patreon.com/pdsean, or you can go to my website pdsean.com where all of my artwork's available for purchase. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment below to let me know which paint you liked better or which two paint brands I should compare next. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you next time.